Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be going through our Week 6 trade targets.
Hike!
All right, Joe. So, per usual, you and I are going to both provide 2 trade targets that we've got our eyes on, and we're going to be utilizing the Draft Sharks trade value chart, our friends over at Draft Sharks. So, Joe, what do you think is going to be your first trade target here?
Yeah, first guy I'm going to go with is running back Breece Hall of the New York Jets, who, bit of a dumpster fire situation this morning, Steve. And they go ahead and fire Robert Saleh. Things aren't looking too good there, and neither has the last couple of weeks of Breece Hall. But he has faced a couple of, good defenses in the Broncos and the Vikings. Teams that just aren't able to move the ball and confusing quarterbacks, everything like that. So he's had a couple of disappointing weeks. That's what I think is opened up this window of opportunity. Maybe owner is just scrambling here. Jets almost look like a free fall. They're already scrambling week 5 here, firing their head coach. And this upcoming Monday night, they got the Buffalo Bills. And the weakness of the Bills is the run game. You saw what Derrick Henry was able to do on a Sunday night against them. And I think there's an opportunity for Breece Hall to have a bounce back game against the Buffalo Bills. And that's why I'm saying you want to go ahead and try to get this trade in before that game happens, because his value could go up. I mean, Draft Sharks trade value currently has him sitting at 75, which is, still decently high despite the disappointment. But I think there's a chance maybe if he's panicking, you package a couple of, mid-grade running backs that could be performing better right now. And maybe that entices a owner who could be disappointed with Breece Hall's performance, because, I know I was projecting him to be the RB1 this year, and the way it's been looking, he's pretty far away from that type of finish.
Well, I think people, including you and me, were not expecting Braylon Allen to be as involved. I mean, he has had a couple touchdowns this year. We know sometimes that's what matters at the end of the day. A running back can have a really good day. They just don't find themselves in the end zone, and it's going to cost you. So it's interesting enough, I thought about selecting Breece Hall myself. The biggest thing was I was like looking at the values. I was like, boy, like who am I offering? I'll throw out 2 names that I think could be interesting, because this is going to be a hard one to trade. I mean, the owner's got to be panicking. I do think that with the demotion, or the firing, I should say, of Robert Saleh, sometimes I really wish it wasn't against the Bills, because you talk about this all the time. That replacement coach boost, that first week, that interim head coach, they play, they rah-rah around the coach, and then it kind of goes back to normal after that.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if that situation is going to happen, because it's not like last year with the Raiders where like everyone hated Josh McDaniels, couldn't wait for him to leave. I don't really know how the players felt about Saleh, if he had the same vibe, and maybe just the locker room was down, and that's part of the reason they made this move. More so than
I don't know. Him and Rodgers had some really quirky moments on the sideline.
No, I know.
It just didn't make a lot of sense.
Thing. I know he kind of tried to say on the Pat McAfee show at the time, he didn't realize he was a hug guy, and then thought he was more of the, push, shove, rah-rah guy. But I don't know. It's been weird, and I don't know.
That didn't pass the smell test for me.
Yeah.
They really didn't. I think that's bogus, if you ask me.
Yeah, so, if he really did lose the locker room, maybe this is a bump. But if not, and guys still respected him, and the team showed, wasn't quitting on him by any means on the field. So I don't know. No. That's what more of a behind the scenes thing than anything. But I'm curious to see if there is kind of that boost.
Well, Ulbrich too is a solid guy, so I don't know. I'll be interested. I won't. Well, there's no way they were going to have Nathaniel Hackett be the head coach. So I guess Ulbrich was the only option.
Yeah, unless special teams coordinator. But Ulrich has been around, a long time. He's a well-respected defensive coordinator. I think he was probably a good guy to go ahead and elevate. And I've seen him on Hard Knocks. He is a high energy guy. Brings positivity. So I do think they possibly made the right choice there.
I'll throw out 2 names for you that I think could maybe get it done. Would you trade Alvin Kamara? He's the number 1 running back right now in fantasy. Would you trade him away for Breece Hall? Or A.J. Brown, coming off of an injury? Looks like they say he's going to be playing this upcoming week. Both, A.J. Brown's got a higher trade value. Kamara's got a lower one. But do you think either one of those would you trade away to get Breece Hall? Do you think even in that proposal would the Breece Hall owner even consider?
Yeah, you might have to do Kamara and then another piece. But I mean, I do think it's worth trying. I mean, Kamara has been the number one back. I'm interested to see. Derek Carr's out for a couple weeks. Spencer Rattler's supposedly going to be the starting quarterback while he's out for those couple weeks. How does that affect Alvin Kamara? I know prior to the season you were expecting to drop because he wasn't going to dump it down. If that is the case, maybe it is a good time to go ahead, sell high in Alvin Kamara, and go get somebody like a Breece Hall. I mean, even if you had to, add a piece to Alvin Kamara, because there is a chance they say 2 weeks of Spencer Rattler and just keep him going. Because I mean, you saw
That's what I mentioned that, Joe, but I didn't think it was going to be based on injury. I thought it was going to be based on play. But
so I knew it was going to be. I thought the best chance for Rattler was based off injury, and here we are, just 5 weeks into the season. I mean, Derek Carr and that Saints offense came out blazing the first 2 weeks. Last 3 weeks kind of come back down to earth. So to me, it's like if Spencer Rattler shows something these first 2 weeks, they may just ride the hot hand.
I think so. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
But yeah, going back to the AJ Brown too, I that is interesting. Like if I had a plethora of wide receivers, I think I'd go ahead and pull the trigger just because, hamstrings can also be tough and kind of nagging. I know they've let him rest and hopefully he's healed up enough, but I do think a name like that could be enticing enough if an owner is, kind of panicked about Breece Hall.
Are you enjoying this episode so far? Well, if you are, subscribe to our YouTube channel, smash that like button, and hit the notification bell for upcoming videos. We do videos throughout the year, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store. All right, Joe, so my first trade target is going to be quarterback Kirk Cousins. That's right. It's, what is it, Joe? It's Kirktober right now. So that means Kirk Cousins is going to show up right now in the month of October, and I really like the stretch. Yep. Here's the thing. Unless you have a bona fide starter, I always think it's not bad to have 2 quarterbacks on your roster. I know you and I differ on that, but I think, in redraft leagues and, kind of, your standard 12-team or 10-team leagues, I think it makes sense, kind of play based on matchup. I really like this next 4-game stretch here for Kirk Cousins. He's got a really good, juicy streak. He's got Carolina Panthers in week 6. He's got Seattle, Tampa Bay, Dallas. I mean, you can't get much better than that. Now, after that, he kind of goes through a middle section that's pretty rough. But coming out of that, he's got at Las Vegas, then the New York Giants, then at Washington for the championship. And the game before that, he's got at Minnesota. So, got the revenge game narrative. So I think Kirk Cousins, I think this offense, this is not just, a spark. I think this is a flame right now, what happened over the past week that we saw them in the night game. I think that the Falcons are starting to click. You're starting to see Kirk Cousins rely more on his receivers and even Kyle Pitts. I think that the offense is finally starting to gel. So to me, and if you look at the trade value chart, I mean, Joe, you don't have to spend much to get this guy at all. I can't believe how low it is. I mean, you could trade the likes of Drake May or Caleb Williams to get this guy. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Even a guy like Geno Smith, who, I mean, I do like, but or even a guy like Anthony Richardson, who, has shown nothing right now. So to me, Kirk Cousins, he's really soaring right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he had heck of a game Thursday night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, over 500 yards in overtime there. But you just knew it was going to take time, and maybe eventually, things would click and it happened. I mean, he's coming off of an Achilles injury. He's on a new team with new wide receivers, brand new offensive coordinator as well. So nobody had really been a part of the system. And let's face it, the Falcons didn't play him in any preseason games either. So he didn't have the preseason. So honestly, first few weeks of the season was the preseason for this Atlanta Falcons offense. And, Kirk Cousins saw that really good game. I think he continues to build off of it. My second player kind of plays off of this as well. A little teaser for the people out there. But yeah, I like the trade target. And like you said, it's, acquisition cost isn't very high to get him.
It's so funny because I don't know if you ever do this or have looked back at this. I was this close to dropping him and picking up for a waiver player that I said, yeah, you know what, let me just hold on to him for another week. And boy, I'm glad I did, because had I done it, I probably would have had a ton of fab to bring him back. I was so glad that I didn't do it. But I was like, before that past game against the Bucs, I was like, is Kirk Cousins broken, with that Achilles? I was like, no, but now everything's changed.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely looked broken. I mean, you still kind of have the offensive line concerns with the injuries they've had up front, but if he's able to continue to get the ball out quick, I mean, Kirk Cousins should be able to still continue to do well here moving forward.
So, Joe, who is your second trade target?
Yeah, as I mentioned, it is wide receiver with the Atlanta Falcons, and it's going to be Darnell Mooney. Coming off of a 16 target game, he had 9 catches for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. And, trade value chart via Draft Sharks has him at 17 value. So the big game did not essentially affect his trade value cost here. And I feel like there's a decent amount of guys around him that I'd be willing to, DeAndre Hopkins I'd trade. Probably a guy like, Lad McConkey, Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Tyler Lockett. I doubt somebody would be interested in Christian Watson, but Christian Watson's actually higher than Darnell Mooney, which is wild to me because, I mean, he had one halfway decent game week 1, and that's because he found the end zone. And then even a guy like Khalil Shakir, that would be kind of, an interesting move, even though the Bills offense doesn't seem to be rolling right now. So I'd probably even be willing to do that. But you just see Darnell Mooney continue to be one of those guys that Kirk Cousins is looking out for. And I know 16 targets was a big number this past game, but he's had some solid target numbers, the last 3 weeks prior to that too, with, 6, 8, and 7. And I think if you're just playing a PPR league, he's a good option to be acquiring here.
Yeah, honestly, I'm shocked that the value is so low. I'm with you on this. I mean, we almost thought about having him be one of our waiver wire, ads because not even ever, if you look, I think he had 60% roster ownership.
Yeah.
Across different league platforms. But I'm with you. I mean, honestly, he looks like the number one guy. I mean, we were all excited about Drake London. We were all excited about Kyle Pitts. I mean, it seems like for whatever reason, Darnell Mooney and Ray McLeod are getting, more action. So I think Mooney's looking the part. I mean, he was always a talented player in Chicago, just kind of fell out of favor with that organization. And, him and Justin Fields couldn't get on the same page. But, now it seems like with Kirk Cousins, things seem to be getting better. So I'm with you. Like, to think I could trade Christian Kirk or Christian Watson, that just doesn't seem right.
No. And I mean, like I said, Christian Watson's hurt right now too. And the fact that he really hasn't done anything and Mooney's coming off of such a great game, I can't believe the value is at where it's at.
I mean, honestly, I would trade away Michael Pittman for him.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, especially if with Anthony Richardson possibly coming back here, Pittman he's another guy. I feel like he's going to have to get in the end zone for you to be happy.
Agreed, 100%. So my last trade target might be a little bit of a doozy. I think you even were like, wait, you really want to recommend this guy? Yes, Joe, I do. And that's going to be wide receiver Amari Cooper. Look, when it comes to trades, I like to gamble a little bit. And this is the type of trade that I'm really interested in. If he stays on the Cleveland Browns, you might be sunk, right? It's an opportunity cost. But if he does get traded, if he gets traded to the right team, let's say he goes to the Chiefs, let's say he goes to the Bills, you made out like a bandit. Because right now, if we try to trade for the guy, I mean, the Cleveland Browns offense is awful. I mean, Deshaun Watson, is not playing very well at all. They have not been able to fix the offensive issues. Now, you could say if Jameis Winston becomes a quarterback, but they're paying Deshaun Watson so much money, it seems like they're stuck with him. They can't they have to have this guy play. From what it sounds like, ownership is saying this guy has to play, which honestly, if you're paying that much amount of money, do you really want to, do you want to be paying this guy, millions of dollars just to be sitting on the sideline? Like, that's a tough sell. So at the end of the day, to me, it's worth the gamble. So that's why, because I think if you're an Amari Cooper owner, maybe you're kind of like, I should hold on to him because he gets traded, but it's like, will he actually get traded? So I think it could be possible you could trade for the guy. Right now, trade value is pretty low. I'd be willing to trade Cortland Sutton away, George Pickens, Keenan Allen. Those are all guys that are currently ahead of Amari Cooper. So for me, I'd be willing to trade those guys. I'd also be willing to be traded a guy like Zach Moss, or even honestly Nick Chubb. I can't believe Nick Chubb is as high as he is. We don't even know when he's going to come back. I mean, I know he's practicing, but He came back from he's going to be coming back from a gruesome injury. So,
Yeah.
to me, I think Amari Cooper. I mean, I think he's very interesting. If I could try to get him, I would. It'll be interesting to see if you could pry him away.
Yeah, I think he potentially could. Just with it as he currently stands as a Cleveland Brown, because I think, Amari Cooper owners, like, he's a name and he's going to be hard to bench. And especially because, you did see the 1 week that he did have against the Giants where he had, scored you 27 points in a PPR league. And he had 12 targets. I mean, even this past game against Washington, he had 10 targets, just, four receptions, 60 yards. So the targets are there, just it's not happening with Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, essentially quit on his team last week. So that's a tough look. I know, and I get like you're paying this guy a lot of money, but at the end of the day, like fans aren't going to go and want to watch Deshaun Watson. And you got to kind of do what's best for your team, for the ownership, regardless of how much money you're paying the guy. And to me, there's no doubt that, Jameis Winston, would be better not only for fantasy, but just give you a better chance for the Cleveland Browns to win games. But, if Amari Cooper does get traded, I'd be a lot more interested in him.
I don't know where you stand on this. I think it's more likely that he gets traded than Watson getting benched.
Yeah, I mean, I even think both things could happen because at the
I think the other one's more likely is all I'm saying.
Yeah, which it could. I mean, we saw them, move money around his contract, so this contract is now even more favorable to be traded. So I don't disagree with you there. I do think a trade could be coming shortly. With the Browns, especially because, like you mentioned, there's plenty of wide receiver needy teams out there. Based on injuries. I know, Chiefs have been ravaged by injuries. They'd be an interesting team. Ravens are, you hear Ravens are interested in adding somebody. The Bills, as you mentioned, as well. So the trade, I tell you, the trade deadline in the NFL could be interesting this year.
Yeah, the crazy part of it all is that they restructured Deshaun Watson's contract. Why would you push additional signing bonus down the line? I believe some people were like, oh, it actually helps the cap. I'm like, I think I understand the cap management pretty well, and this one doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, well, Adam Schefter was saying it does, so I would think that he would generally have a pretty good idea of why a team would do that. And he was kind of the one, he went on a Pat McAfee show and was saying, because people were like, oh, what's going on with Deshaun Watson? Are they adding somebody or whatever? And he was like, no, it's simply like a, cap savings move so that maybe they have some cap to roll over next year. But I like you, we both, based on salary cap leagues that we're in, we have a decent grasp on it. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me either.
No. So that does it for our Week 6 trade targets. We provided 4 players, so go reach out to your league mates, see if you can't make a trade. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.